Hello and welcome to our webinar on SWIFT CSP. Thank you again for being there. This is like a long overdue webinar, and I really appreciate your time to come and for this webinar and to be here. Thank you again for all the participants. And in case you're watching this webinar online on our YouTube channel, then welcome for that too. Do leave your feedback in the comment section below in case you're watching it on YouTube. All right, so before we jump right in, this is a good time to just subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can see the link on your screen. I'm just putting it in the chat box. So here it's literally like the #1 channel on compliance on the internet. And, all the resources are free. We don't have any paid membership or something. And all the resources are there, on PCI DSS, HIPAA, GDPR, SOC 1, SOC 2, SWIFT, and DORA, and ethical hacking. So many subjects are there. So feel free to just subscribe to our channel right now and click on the bell icon. We upload like one video a week or something. So you should be able to get the max out of the resources that you're providing online. And again, it's for free. I'll just take a minute to just ask you if you are able to hear me. Just, if you can just say yes or something in the chat box, or if you can just give me a thumbs up or something, so I will know that you can see my screen and you can hear me clearly. Do let me know if you're having any trouble in seeing the screen or anything else. Thank you. So that's about me. I'm Narendra Sahu. I'm the director for Vista InfoSec. I'm myself a QSA, QPA, SLC, many other things, CISSP, CISA, and CRISC, and I've been there about 25, 30 years now. And my company has been there for like 20 years and now. And, I work on many subjects. I don't want to get much into myself, so you can look me up online. So, of course, let's jump into the subject and what is SWIFT, and these are the topics that we'll be covering: the major breaches, and then introduction to SWIFT CSP, then the core principles of SWIFT CSCF, that is a audit framework, and then the SWIFT CSP 32 security controls, and the steps to implement SWIFT CSP, and the final would be the Q&A. In case you have any questions, I'll be taking that up, and whatever questions been asked till now, we can take that up. So what is SWIFT? The full form is Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications. So that's the full form. So many of you would be familiar that when you need to transfer some money across countries, especially, you need to provide something called as a SWIFT code. So by that, they can, banks can transfer funds between each other across the world. And that's why the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. So this is very important. So that's what the SWIFT code looks like. And so SWIFT is basically a secure, standardized global financial, it's like a messaging network. So, between financial institutions, between banks and other institutions, and also this SWIFT as an organization controls who can send and receive messages, thereby enhancing security. And so this created the ISO 20022 and the FIN messages format, which helps basically banks and financial institutions communicate in a clear and standardized way across the world. And at this time, it is connecting 11,500 banks and financial institutions in over 200 countries. Can you believe that? 11,500 banks. Now, when I say 11,500 banks, it doesn't just mean branches, all right? So there could be one bank having thousands of branches, so it doesn't mean that all is counted under this. So, you need to keep that in mind. And so, going ahead. So, basically, SWIFT was established to replace a telex communication, which was there earlier in the 70s and all. So, telex communication for, transfer of messages between banks so that they can identify and control the flow of funds across various financial institutions. And so SWIFT in itself does not, this is something that you need to understand, that SWIFT does not in itself process or hold any funds. So it is not like a acquirer or like a brand or something which is storing all the funds. Even the brands in credit cards don't hold the payments per se. But here, SWIFT, as many companies think or many organizations think, that SWIFT is like a central bank, like the reserve banks, and they are holding the funds between two financial institutions and then guaranteeing the flow of funds and managing the assets. And no, it doesn't. It simply transmits financial messages between institutions, which include payment instructions, trade confirmations, and even like securities that we may deal online. So it's not just about money. Of course, everything is about money, but it's not just payment instructions. I mean, so there have been some major security breaches involving SWIFT. We can see this in Sonali Bank, Bangladesh. This is one of the earliest known SWIFT-related thefts, and the organization and the attacker stored like $250,000 by manipulating SWIFT messages. So this is literally not a huge, 250,000. That's like a quarter of a million, but so it's really peanuts for banks. But this gave some idea to the SWIFT system, to the banks, about the warning sign for vulnerabilities within the SWIFT system. So then came the Banco de Ostro, Ecuador in 2015, where the attacker stole $12 million by compromising the bank's systems and manipulating the SWIFT messages. And then the Tai Pong Bank in Vietnam in 2015 again, where an attempted threat of 1.1 million messages was made using fraudulent SWIFT messages. But this particular attack on Tai Pong Bank was not successful. And then again, the Bangladesh bank heist, which was literally bigger, and here it involved a theft of $81 million, where the attackers compromised the SWIFT network through the use of malware. And this again exposed significant vulnerabilities in the existing protocol within the SWIFT system. This was back in 2016. And then in 2017, there was a Far Eastern International Bank. Here, the attacker successfully stole $60 million. Can you believe that? So that has been the scale of a few, SWIFT-related scams or attacks or hacks in and around the world. Okay, and there is one more, if I can add to this. I didn't list it over here, but just I would say that was that was the largest by far, and this was like the Punjab National Bank in India, where again it was more not like a hack per se, but this was more like a scam, where again SWIFT messages were manipulated using corrupt officials in banks, amounting to like $1 billion. Yes, you heard me right. $1,000 million, $1 billion. And of course, those scamsters, with good help from their friends, are now sitting in London somewhere. And this was back in 2019. So this was like the latest that I can think of. So the LOUs were used to get credit from overseas branches of Indian banks. So the bank employees themselves manipulated the SWIFT messages to siphon out the funds from the Punjab National Bank in India. So so this was like a huge amount, like $1 billion, which is like unheard of. And by some estimates, it was as big as $1.8 billion. And you heard me right, $1,800 million, right? 1.8 billion. So this was back in 2018. So it was by far the biggest bank heist in the world on SWIFT. So then, of course, now that was not like the SWIFT system got hacked. It was again corrupt bank, government officials and all, because to ensure this thing happened in the right way and the wrong messages was sent on SWIFT. So it was not really like the SWIFT system got hacked. So I need to clarify that with the Punjab National 1.8 billion, B for $1 billion bank, $1 billion heist. There was no compromise of the SWIFT systems, only compromise of human integrity. It was a scam, not a hack of SWIFT. Okay. Anyway, Advanced and coordinated attacks are there, which is increasing the complexities of cyber attacks, and then targeting the SWIFT messaging across the world, and then malware with tailored functionality. This has been designed like customized, tailor-made malware to bypass, to breach financial systems and manipulate the SWIFT messages, bypassing the traditional security measures. And then there is an evolving threat landscape. The complexity of attacks has increased with time, with cyber criminals continually adapting to circumvent evolving security measures. And then some of the diverse attack vectors used by threat vectors over here by threat actors. The malware deployment is there using the threat actors. Malicious softwares are there to infiltrate the systems. So very innovative attack vectors are being now created by the threat actors. And then phishing and spear phishing, which is spear phishing is like where they target individuals whom they know has got access to SWIFT, to compromise their IDs, to compromise the system so that the SWIFT messages can be manipulated and the hackers can get access into the system. And then of course social engineering, credential theft and exploitation. And then of course the weaknesses in endpoint security. Endpoint security would be all the desktops and mobile devices, which provides very easy entry points for attackers to infiltrate systems, manipulate transactions, or exfiltrate the sensitive data. So now introduction to the SWIFT CSP. CSP stands for Customer Security Program. So this is basically a set of cybersecurity standards designed for financial institutions connected to the SWIFT network. So this aims to enhance the security of financial transactions and protect against cyber threats. And this was introduced in 2017 after those, highs that we discussed over here. After 2017, the Far Eastern International Bank, then the CSP was formed, SWIFT CSP, for addressing the growing concerns over cybersecurity in the global financial sector. Now, this program focuses on safeguarding critical financial infrastructures and protocols, and the SWIFT CSP addresses key vulnerabilities, such as network breach, fraud, unauthorized access to data, data leakages. All those things are covered over here. And then this requires financial institutions, to have a baseline set of security controls in place. So that's how it is. So there is nothing that can be bypassed over here. There's a minimum set of requirements that you need and absolutely should have in place. That's how the system works. And then mandatory participation in the program is enforced for all SWIFT users. So it is not like a bank can decide whether this has to be done or not. And this is required to be done annually by accredited assessors. This cannot be done by any Tom, Dick, and Harry organization. This has to be done by people who are trained SWIFT auditors. For example, I am one. Our organization, Vista InfoSec, is a SWIFT empaneled auditor. So we do such things. And not just us, there are many others also. But you need to get it done by an empaneled SWIFT auditor only. So this framework aligns with international cybersecurity standards, such as ISO 27001. And then again, certification under SWIFT serves as a critical indicator for an organization's commitment to cybersecurity. So this is very important. Now the objectives and core principles of the SWIFT Customer Security Controls Framework, CSC as it is called. So there is CSC, Customer Security Controls, CSCF as it is called, and there's a Customer Security Program. This is like the name of the program, CSP, and CSCF comes under the CSP. So the CSCF Customer Security Controls Framework, I'm looking at the version 2024 over here. It's got 3 objectives, 7 principles, and 32 controls. So of this, 25 are mandatory and 7 are advisory. So we'll get into all of these things. So which are the 3 objectives? Secure an environment, know and limit access, and detect and respond. These are the 3 objectives. And below that are the 7 principles. We'll get into that also. So secure an environment is more about restricting the internet access, segregating critical systems, reducing the attack surface and vulnerabilities, and then the physical securing the environment. Many a time, organizations feel that securing your environment speaks about physical security only. It doesn't. Physical security is one of the 3 objectives under secure environment in CSCF. Now, know and limit access is based on the principle of least privilege. And here it speaks about one more area, which is preventing the compromise of credentials, prevent credentials compromise, and manage identities and secure and segregate privileges. And the next is detect anomalous activity in systems or transaction records, and then plan for incident response and information sharing. So these things are very important. These are the three objectives and the 7 principles. So secure environment speaks about restricting internal. So now low and limit access is based on the principle of least privilege, one of the key areas. And so here it is preventing the compromise of credentials. So it is mandating multi-factor authentication to provide user credentials. Again, this is one of the controls that is written. It speaks about strong authentication mechanisms and then manage identities and segregate privileges. Here it speaks about implementing role-based access controls and the principle of least privilege to limit user access to sensitive systems and information. Next is detect and respond. Detect anomalous activity in system or transaction records. So this is more about monitoring your application, monitoring your systems, and then for this continuously monitor systems for unusual patterns or unauthorized user access attempts. And the next is plan for incident response and information sharing. Develop an for this it is required to have a very robust incident response plan. I would go a step more and say incident management plan, which includes an incident response plan, and then maintain the channels for information sharing to coordinate between various institutions for remediation and catching the concerned people during security incidents. Now the 25 mandatory security controls, of which 7 are optional. So total 30 to 25 and 7. Again, for the 7 security practices, also SWIFT has recommended users to adopt to further enhance the security postures. But if not, the 25 mandatory controls are sacrosanct. And here you can see them. Here you can see SWIFT environment protection, operation system privileged account management, virtualization, restriction of internet access. Now, these are just the headings, guys. Below it, there are the actual requirements that are also listed. You can go through it. Doesn't make sense for me to read it out to you. It is self-explanatory. We'll get into it as we go ahead. I hope it makes sense, and you can see that it's not that they're talking about anything new that you will get. So if you are very versed with something like an ISO 27001, but again, ISO is a very bad standard, if I can say that very upfront. If you're if you're very familiar with something like a PCI or a SOC 2, but again, more than SOC 2, if I say a PCI and something like a NIST cybersecurity framework, you'll understand this is like given in that case. And in case you are interested to know about PCI DSS and SOC 2 and NIST CSF, again, head back to the YouTube channel and you can see a ton of videos explaining just that. These are the 7 advisory controls. Now, advisory means not mandate, but it is advised to you to do it. And if you don't, it's still fine. It won't constitute non-compliance. But SWIFT as an organization really recommends you to do even this. So what are the steps to implement SWIFT CSP? It's a typical process, if I can say that. Initiate with an initial gap assessment and gap analysis. And here, basically it is like an as-is assessment. So what happens is, understand here, if you're doing it, we do an initial thorough review of your current security controls, look at your business processes, locations, your overall network architecture and everything, and then identify the gaps between the existing practices and the SWIFT CSP requirements. Then you need to work on this with a CSP assessor to understand the specific needs, and based on this, you identify the gap analysis for your organization to identify the gaps between the required mandated controls and your existing setup. Then once you have the gaps in place, you develop a compliance plan, then create a roadmap. For this compliance plan, you develop a roadmap and define timelines and resources needed for each control implementation. Once you have understood what are the gaps, then the timelines and resources for each control implementation, it has emerged as a gap. And very important for you to prioritize the high-risk areas. So which are the high-risk areas that varies from business to business, and as a part of your pre-assessment, you can get this done in a more constructive manner. Then after that, once you have the compliance program in place, then you can start implementing the security controls, and very important to begin with your mandatory controls. This ensures that all the control is applied effectively across the SWIFT network. Then collaborate with your IT and security teams for the technical implementation and configuration. Regularly review the implementation process to stay on track with the compliance plan. This is very important that you do this. And then the continuous monitoring and reporting. This is like on not just of the gaps in your organization, which has emerged from the gap assessment or the pre-assessment or the implementing of the security controls. Of course, that also needs to be done, but this speaks about an ongoing monitoring of your systems, not just closure of the gaps. So closure of the gaps, and that's like a one-time thing. But then management and ensuring that the controls are working properly without any deviations, that is very, very important. And for that, you need to have the right KPIs defined, and then ensure timely reporting of incidents and security events as required by the SWIFT CSP. Then engage with the SWIFT CSP assessor for the validation of the controls, which is like the actual audit per se. So this, again, the keyword over here is certified SWIFT CSP assessor. So again, in this thing, I would like to tell you something in case you're not aware, is that you cannot just become a SWIFT CSP assessor on your own. There's an organization that has to be behind you, which is SWIFT CSP, empaneled organization. And below that organization, there would be the actual assessors doing the assessment. So if somebody says that I'm a certified assessor and I can do it, check the organization whether they are actually certified to do assessments, and whether this gentleman who's calling himself or herself as the auditor, whether that person is empaneled under that organization or doing the SWIFT CSP audits. I really hope that's you're getting what I'm trying to say over here. So once that is done, then that is the process for obtaining the SWIFT CSP attestation. The certificate of attestation will then demonstrate a commitment to maintain a secure environment for SWIFT transactions. Once that is done, ensure that this is like there is an ongoing compliance and maintenance program to ensure that it's not just like a one-time activity that you had for implementing the SWIFT CSP requirements. And then, of course, every year there is updates to the SWIFT CSP framework. Ensure that you are implementing the latest one and not the old one. Okay, the Q&A time, the frequently asked questions. And as I'm going through this, do let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be more than happy to engage in them with you. So how often must organizations undergo a SWIFT CSP assessments? So it is an annual requirement. So this includes completing a self-assessment and having an independent third-party audit. So it is not just you can do a SWIFT test on your own and that's the end of it, but you need to have an internal and an external auditor. And this is to be done in an independent way. And that's where even we as a company, Vista InfoSec, can help you in facilitating both. There is the internal audit and the external audit. We have separate audit teams for that. For internal audit, which forms a part of our audit and consulting practice, and then there's a certification audit practice which is separate, and an advisory and consulting practice is separate. So that's where we can help you with possibly. And then what resources are available to help us understand and implement the SWIFT CSP? Now, this SWIFT CSP documentation, guidelines, and best practices are available on their official website. So this is not like you have to pay something for it. So you can enroll yourself, your organization under it as a partner, or there are so many modules available. You not even pay for most of them. Become a part of SWIFT, and then SWIFT themselves provide the security updates, self-assessment tools, and the community support to help with the implementation. So keep in touch with SWIFT, and they're really, really very sweet people, very helpful people. And of course, you can always reach out to us in case you're getting confused anywhere, and we are there with you to help you on the SWIFT journey in a swift way. All right. So what happens if there is a cases of non-compliance? Wow. So over here, there could be significant fines and penalties. You can even lose privilege of having a SWIFT code, so you're not able to make interbank messaging and fund transfers and all. So there could be penalties from the local authorities like the reserve banks and the regulatory bodies. So there is an endless list that can happen, and this can be to millions of dollars for severe violations. So what is the scope cover of SWIFT CSP? So again, this is for everything. As you must have seen from the 25 mandatory requirements, what you saw over here. Yeah, from what you saw over here. So it is obvious that it covers in a very expansive and comprehensive model all the IT organizations or IT systems within your organization concerned with Swift. So you got other 10 applications really not concerned, but this is anything and all everything which is part of Swift comes under the Swift audits. And again, this includes even your shared system. So you've got a shared firewall, your share, whatever else is there. So all those things comes under the audit scope for CSP, Swift CSP audits. And this includes the people, process, and technologies, not just on the technology front or the people front. And then this is a frequently asked questions. So many companies say that, okay, we are already 27,000 certified. Do we still need to do Swift? Yes, of course you need to do. And in case you have any idea of Swift and ISO, you will know that Swift requirements are much more comprehensive, expansive, and very methodical and precise as compared to ISO, which is really, I don't know, I don't want to use disproportionate language over here, but it's really nothing can be compared to an ISO. ISO is extremely basic. So that brings me to the end, and that's a brief background. ISO 27000, sorry, Vista InfoSec, we've been there like for 20 years and 20 years of trusted service. This is our LinkedIn page, and those are our contact details. Do drop us a line, and we'll be more than happy to help you. And in case you have any questions, do drop us a line. And there is a survey at the end of this webinar. Do feel free to fill it up and give all your comments, whether it is positive, negative, words of encouragement, ideas of future audits and future webinars. So thank you again for your time. I look forward to hearing from you. Take care. Bye-bye.